welcome to Slapendipity, hobos of Happy Slappy Town. I am Eric, your adaptation master, and with me is Gibby Devon.
I am Devin Gibby, your adaptation apprentice. Keep in mind you can always also call Eric Eric. So yeah, welcome to Happy Slappy Town, hobo serendipity of the, or as I like to call it, Shost. SHOHST, Slapendipity hobos of Happy Slappy Town. And you know why I call it that, Eric?
No, I really don't.
Because we're going to talk about some acronyms today.
Oh no.
So this is a topic that I became extremely focused on because somebody at my day job said something that highly offended me.
I thought you were going to say because of Kingdom Hearts.
No, we're going to be talking about the fact that while referring to a compass, one of my employees said, "Remember, never eat soggy waffles."
Okay.
This is the worst thing I have ever heard in my entire life.
I feel like I heard that years ago.
What is your mnemonic device for remembering the compass directions? Because
None
I
of
think
them.
we
It's
probably have
just
the same ones.
north, south, east, west.
Even when you were a kid?
Yeah, north, south, east, west. It's 4 words. It's not
Oh,
hard.
lordy. So mine was always never eat shredded wheat. Because it
Okay.
rhymes. North,
Yeah.
east, south, west. Never eat shredded wheat. It rhymes.
Okay.
Who came
sure.
up with never eat soggy waffles? It doesn't rhyme. It's so many more syllables. Like, it genuinely offended me that there is somebody out there to whom this is their mnemonic device for the compass directions.
Yeah.
So, I went online. I went to, like, Reddit, and I was looking at other people. Like, I'm like, is this just this kid, like, making something up, or is this, like, a real thing? And apparently it's a real thing. And I was looking at other people's mnemonic devices, and many of the comments were the same thing you said, which is that they're like, I never had to come up with a list of 4 things, I just remembered them. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this led me down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
And
Did you
so
find Alice?
our first segment today, we'll get back to Alice later, trust me. Our first segment today is going to be me asking you questions about various mnemonic devices.
Okay. Can I jump in front of this a little bit?
Yes.
The 2 I know off the top of my head are from music class. I am terrible with I don't play instruments. I can't, like, I guess in theory I could read a music sheet, but I don't. I'm not good. You don't want me in a rhythm game. However, my music teacher from elementary school taught us face, FACE, and then I think that's the space in between the lines. And then on the lines themselves is elephants got big, dirty feet.
No way.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
It works. I still remember it like 20 years later or something.
Okay, so like this is, I guess, like the point of this conversation, because I'm like, there's gonna be some that we agree on, and then some that we like strongly don't. Keep in mind, me and you grew up in very different states and very different regions of the country.
Yes,
But I was told every good boy deserves fudge. That's my music thing, and I thought that was like universal.
No, turns out.
That's crazy.
I think I did hear that during when I moved up into the north, like, and they were like, I was in music class and they were like, oh, every good boy deserves fudge. And I was like, that's dumb. Elephants got big dirty feet. They were like, okay, I mean, whatever works.
So there is a Wikipedia page about mnemonics, and I don't know why, because it's literally just a series of like examples of various mnemonic devices, and I don't know why that deserves a Wikipedia page, but I did find it extremely helpful in this endeavor. So for this exact example, it lists different variations of that acronym. Every good boy deserves fudge, every good boy deserves friendship, every good boy deserves fun, every good boy deserves fruit. And like those are fine, I guess. Like I can see a modern music class in elementary school being like, we don't want these kids to get fat and eat fudge, so they deserve friendship and fruit. Like, I get it. But some of the other ones, like, eggnog gets better during February.
Lols.
Empty garbage before dad flips. Not on the list is your elephant example, so you weren't good enough for Wikipedia.
Nah, Wikipedia just wasn't in the know. It's top secret.
I'm just like, I don't understand why we need multiple variations of, like who out there heard, let's assume that the original was Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge. Who out there heard that and was like, you know what, when I teach this, I'm gonna change it to eggnog gets better during February.
I mean, I think it's just music teachers in this example, like, just being individuals. You know, like there was an English teacher, he like loved eggnog, drank a bunch of it, and then realized in February, hey, it tastes better for some reason. Let me get this down. And then that was it.
So in my schooling, at least in elementary school, there was like a lot of different mnemonic devices they taught us for random things, like the order of the planets. Did you have one for like Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, etc.?
No, you just remembered them.
That's so weird. That's so weird. In my elementary school, it was my very educated mother just served us nice pancakes.
Maybe I have heard of that. That sounds familiar. I don't think I was taught that, but I think I heard it. Because that does sound familiar.
Okay, but have you ever heard most vegetables eat more juice, so usually never pee?
No.
Many vicious elephants met just slightly under new pineapples?
No.
My very extravagant mother just sent us 90 parakeets. My mother very eagerly made a jelly sandwich under no protest.
No, but that's also kind of hilarious, the idea of your mom making a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and you're just like, no, mother, stop this. This must not be made.
I just don't understand how it got to the point where someone's talking about vegetable pee when there are so many more, I guess, just like useful versions of the same thing.
Well, but what is useful? As long as it's remembered, it did its
Useful
job.
is pancakes. So like on the Wikipedia page for this, instead of pancakes, it says potatoes, which is like fine. But I'm like, I am fairly obsessed with this new topic of like, why are there regional differences for things like this?
I could not tell you. However, I think one that is universal, if I may, really quick.
I think I know where you're going.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
And, You'd
s-
think so. You would think so.
Don't you dare.
You would think so.
All right, you lay it on me then. What's the alternative?
I am trying to find it.
Well, sounds like it doesn't exist then. I don't even have an Aunt Sally. And yet she is excused.
So when I was in like 5th grade,
Yeah.
right? Again, early elementary school. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
Yeah.
There you go. Easiest thing in the world to learn. When I was in 5th grade, one of the kids was like, for some reason we were talking about this mnemonic device, and one of the kids raised their hand and they're like, you know what I was taught when I was taught the order of operations? Please eat my dad's applesauce.
That's weird.
I don't like it. Like when I was 10 years old, I was already like judging this kid harshly. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
You don't even have an Aunt Sally.
You don't even have an Aunt Sally, and your dad is being really weird about children eating his applesauce. Why did he drug his applesauce? It sounds like he drugged his applesauce.
But now you're going to be stealing it from him. You're going to be eating his applesauce.
Is that
so this
anyway?
This thing that like has been bothering me since I was 10 years old, like it just flared up again because of this kid's stupid soggy waffles.
Sure. Yeah.
One of the other examples, and like at least this one makes sense. It's about the like the taxonomic order of stuff, like domain, kingdom, phylum, class, that whole thing. Did you learn
Okay.
that?
No.
So like in my freshman year biology class, like we learned about all this stuff. And the version I learned was dead King Philip came over for good soup.
Okay. Sounds.
Apparently the quote unquote Wikipedia official version is dear King Philip came over for good soup.
I
They're
mean,
censoring my boy.
yeah, yeah. Well, you can't have death in a school. That'd be
No, but you can have
ridiculous.
peeing vegetables.
Well, yeah, look at VeggieTales.
I don't think they ever peed in VeggieTales, Eric.
They must have had one scene. One scene. It might have been implied. Might have been off screen. But I could for sure see Larry the Cucumber on guard duty as Bob the Tomato
Whipping
is
out his cucumber, I get it.
what? I can't believe they have us looking out to see if Christ rises in the next 3 days. Oh, Larry, that's not gonna happen. 3 days later.
So we were actually just talking about VeggieTales in our group chat with a lot of our high school friends. And I don't remember if you were involved in the conversation or not, but one of the things we talked about was how when the creator of VeggieTales set out to make it, he pitched the idea to his mother, and his mother made him promise to never depict Jesus as a vegetable. So all of the stories in the VeggieTales shows are from the Old Testament, because otherwise they would have to have vegetable Jesus.
Okay.
And that's why VeggieTales has never done, like, the Jesus stories, like the Nativity or Easter, right? There's never been Larry whipping out his little cucumber while standing guard over Jesus' tomb, because that would be blasphemy.
Isn't I mean, maybe it was like a fan edit or something, but I thought there is an image of like Larry as Jesus.
I would hope not. There's him as, like, various shepherds, so, like, he's
Yeah,
got the beard and the crook,
yeah.
but never
On a
Jesus the cucumber.
cucumber though, a shepherd and Jesus look really similar. I think is
I
the
agree
thing.
from experience.
You used to be a cucumber.
Remember when we made that short video about Lemony the Lemon and we like put googly eyes and a mustache on him?
I'm gonna say yes.
But like actually yes, or you don't remember? This would have been
I
like
don't
2016. This was
remember.
like 8 years ago. So this is the day that me, you, and our friend George were filming various funny skits. So like he walked over, we were all holding like fake alcohol, and he was like, "Welcome to the party. The strippers and hoes are over there." And me and you were like, "Yeah!" And you yell, "Yeah, let's come on, let's do this." And we walk over, and there's a pair of pliers and a hose, a garden hose,
Yeah.
and then we just look all dejectedly. And
Yeah.
that was skit number one.
I remember that.
Skit number two was Lemony the Lemon. He was an improv comic, and
Okay.
he's doing his set, and George is doing like a "Hi, I'm Lemony the Lemon" voice. And then I grab a knife, and in the middle of the set, I stab the lemon like as hard as I can, and we input all this like concerned yelling and voices from the people who'd be watching the set, and then from off screen you yell, "Please, won't someone get the lemon aid?" And then we just splash lemonade all over the camera lens.
Um,
You don't remember this?
no, not that one.
I guarantee I still have it on video somewhere, but yes, we were 20 years old when we did that.
And we weren't dead or doing illegal activities.
There were no drugs or alcohol
Just
involved.
nerds.
We were just bored.
And liked puns.
Well, because puns are the highest form of comedy.
I don't know about that. They're easy to appreciate. I don't know if I'd say they're the highest form. What was what was the thread here?
The thread was, we're having a conversation and this is how conversations go.
Okay. I thought you had another acronym to bring up, and I derailed this, but I'm glad
No.
this was just how it was supposed to go.
I definitely wanted to end it with PEMDAS because I knew that would be the most like controversial one. the fact that someone's eating their dad's applesauce.
Yeah, no, that is pretty grotesque. I don't I don't vibe with it.
I do think that we partially missed an opportunity to segue into another conversation based on discussions that we recently had in our group chat.
I mean, we're still going now.
Yes, so I would like to bring up the conversation that we had yesterday.
I don't wanna. I was
You don't
afraid
want
of this. I was like, oh
to?
no, what are the odds Devin's gonna want to talk about this? I don't wanna.
So we were discussing, I brought up the topic of works entering the public domain.
Yes.
And I personally have two very strong reasons for believing that it should actually be extended how long works stay copyrighted. Right now it's like 91 years or something random like that. I
I
think
think
it's just
it's
90 years.
94.
Yeah, like I don't know why it's not a round number anyway. I think it should be significantly longer than that. I think just for like the sake of rights, right? Like if you were treating ideas, intellectual property, like real property, I think the idea that like an author could make something and then within the lifetime of their grandchild that thing could be, taken away from their estate is kind of screwed up. But my bigger issue with public domain laws as they currently stand is that I believe we're on the edge of a creative apocalypse. We're about 10 years away from, specifically Batman is my go-to example, but of Batman entering into the public domain. And when that happens within a year or two, it's going to be Batman and Robin and Joker and like all those main characters, the city of Gotham, Commissioner Gordon, like those were all invented in the first year or so of Batman comics. And I bring up the example of the fact that currently, like right this moment, we have three on screen big movie budget Batman franchises going at the same time. We have the new DC universe, we have the Joker series, and we have the Robert Pattinson Batman series. Like from one studio, just from Warner Brothers, just in live action, just in cinemas, we have three Batmen. And once it becomes capable of companies like Disney and Universal, et cetera, to also have their own Batman, like I just think that most movies are going to be Batman. Like when Todd Phillips wanted to make the Joker, he didn't set out to make a Joker movie. He wanted to make the movie he ended up making, and he was able to sell it by making it about a comic book character. Like how many movies? My fear is that in the future there's going to be a lot of great concepts and ideas that won't be able to get made without the attachment of an IP. And because Batman and Superman will be public domain, someone's going to write a story, put Batman in the title, and then sell it that way. And so every single movie that comes out is going to be like set in the Batman universe to get people to go sit down and watch it. That's like that's my dread for how the landscape of cinema is going to look like in 10 years when Batman goes public domain. And Eric, I believe you brought up some great points about Disney and how they were kind of taking control over old fairy tales and stories in a similar way.
Yes. So I firstly disagree with your take of extending the life of the copyrights for, let's say another for 150 years instead of 94 or whatever. But to the Disney point specifically, it was how like uh a lot of the Disney movies, Little Mermaid, Hunchback, etc. They're just stories, just old stories. Like Little Mermaid was a fable or something. Hunchback was the work of some French author, and it was way more like violent. Um, and Disney just saw all of these old works and we're like, we're just gonna take the edges off and we're gonna make it our own thing. Which is fine. Like, again, that's adapting. The like struggle, I guess, I'm not sure the word that I want, is that Disney is just so huge. I think people sometimes forget that, like, hey, Hunchback of Notre Dame isn't Disney's work. Like, they too adapted it. And but like they're just so omnipresent and so wealthy, and which translates to power, that like they can just low key brainwash people into like who made Hunchback? It was us. It was us. The Little Mermaid? Us. And it's like, no, those have existed for hundreds of years. Well, okay, maybe not hundreds in some cases. You know, uh, so I don't vibe with that. And for my overall take, I don't. Originally, back in the day when we were like figuring out copyright laws, they were actually had very short lifespans because the idea was that, like, well, you can't rest on your laurels too much. You gotta, like, keep pumping out other things, IPs, because our Puritan work ethic demands it. And then Disney was like, as far as I know, I'm sure it was Disney as well as other companies, were like, hey, what if we could rest on our laurels? What if we didn't want to make things for every, I don't know, 20 years? And so now we have the copyright law to, again, believe the 94 years that it's at, which I am slightly torn on, like, if the copyright, if the IP is with the creator of it, like, Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, like, if he just had that and then it passed down onto his kids and grandkids and whatever, then, like, I'm more lenient because it's like, well, it's within the family. They're still relatively small. It's not like they're super wealthy. They're making royalty monies from, like, the movies and the books and whatever purchases from anyone still buying it.
So the current law is for a privately owned work like Lord of the Rings is that the copyright expires 70 years after the death of the author. So Lord of the
Mm,
Rings, The Hobbit, etc., those works will enter public domain in 2043. So we're
okay.
19 years out from that being public domain. We're also about 19 years, 20 years ish out from like the original Lord of the Rings movies being made. Like the time between those movies being made in 2001 to now is more time than between now and when they're going to go public domain. And that's kind of crazy to me. That's something that very likely will still have so much cultural hold over people, will leave the control of Tolkien's estate in the very, very near future. I think the example I brought up is that Warner Brothers, who currently owns the film rights to Lord of the Rings, whereas like Amazon can do TV rights about the Silmarillion and stuff like that. They wanted to make, I think, slot machines based on Lord of the Rings, and so Tolkien's son like flipped out about this because he had control over the property, and he didn't want it associated with gambling. So he said, no, they can't do that. But in
Mm.
19 years, there's going to be nothing stopping anyone from putting Lord of the Rings and all those characters and ideas onto slot machines and whatever else they want to. And that's going to be within the lifetime of Tolkien's grandchildren, and that like upsets me.
I think there is a certain amount of, like, obviously there is a sacredness, and, like, that should be respected as best as it can be. But I don't think I think once you put something out there and it's out there, it's only gonna remain what you want it to be for so long. I don't want to make this too gross or graphic, but, like, the things that exist of Lord of the Rings that is not slot machines, I am sure would just as much upset Tolkien. I don't think he realized he was creating a new subgenre of foot fetish when he was making hobbits as a race.
You don't think that J.R.R. Tolkien would be a fan of the amazing independent film Lord of the Cock Rings?
I don't think he would be a huge fan. Now I will say though, there is a certain, like, scale, right? Because, like, sure, J.R. Tolkien probably wouldn't care about Lord of the Cock. I think he would. I think he 100% would. But, but it's like some guy and, 5 people, and they fine, whatever. versus like
Why is there some guy and 5 people? Like
well,
what kind of
his friends,
what
they
kind of
filmed.
independent film are you thinking of that
I know.
involves one guy and 5 people?
I listen. I said. Anyway, so the scale of that versus we're gonna have Lord of the Rings slot machines en masse all over Vegas on cruise ships, etc. Like there is definitely a difference between those, and like I kind of get it, but again, like it's that's what happens when you make a big thing and it goes into the world. Is it other people will have thinks and thoughts about it, and you can't control that. Otherwise, you just have to be ruling the world and censoring what they can and can't do.
That's kind of why I currently like our current system with our parody and our commentary laws. Like let's go full circle back to Veggie Tales. There's a VeggieTale movie called Lord of the Beans, and it's a retelling of the Lord of the Rings saga using the VeggieTales characters. And there's a bean instead of a ring, and it has all the characters that are parodies of Gandalf and Gollum and Frodo and all that stuff. And that obviously didn't have the permission of the estate of Tolkien and etc. 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 And that was still able to be made because under our current parody laws, you're allowed to do stuff like that. You're allowed to add to a work with your own creative interpretations and make money off of it. My issue, I guess, is that like as an author or even as a company that owns certain works, like you can build up a reputation based on certain iconography or imagery or characters, etc., and then have other people in the future profit off of those ideas and that work. Like the good vibes that you give out on your brand can be totally overtaken by other people doing the same thing, who didn't like earn it, I guess. And I think that my go-to example of that, and I think you know where this is going, Eric,
I don't want it.
is that Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movie.
We had this discussion in our group chat, and I went. We
Do you
were
want to
talking.
read
We
your
were
message,
talking
Eric?
about this. We were talking, about all these things, and I, disagreed with Devin's take, and I was like, blah 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 blah. And so I said, I forgot the Winnie the Pooh horror movie sold out and performed so well, they're making a WCU to be sarcastic because it didn't do well. It isn't probably getting a sequel. It's not going to be in the universe because it was dumb and didn't do well. And
So
today, Devin
your
posted.
your response to me saying in 10 years every movie's going to be Batman is you being like, well, yeah, but like it didn't happen with Winnie the Pooh, so it's not going to happen with everything. What happened? What happened 10 minutes before we started recording, Eric?
No, you're not getting
No?
your kicks out of me.
No.
Do it yourself.
So not only is there a sequel to Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, but there is going to be a new movie next year called the Pooniverse. Monsters Assemble. It's using like the same font as the Avengers Endgame. And it's going to include all these characters in the public domain, like Pinocchio and Peter Pan and Bambi. So yes, with the joke that Eric said yesterday, sarcastically saying, I forgot Winnie the Pooh sold so well that they're making a WCU, is now in fact happening with the Pooniverse.
Now, for the record, it didn't exist before I said it. This is just the universe saying, screw this guy in particular. I'm going to make his whole argument fall apart. But I do think, because as you said, because all I really know about it is that it was a horror movie and Dwayne The Rock Johnson was Winnie the Pooh. And that is like...
What?
Isn't that... I never watched it.
I don't think so. What?
Yeah. He 100% was.
Either I'm crazy or you're crazy. In the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movie?
Yeah.
The Rock?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Did you just Mandela affect yourself?
No. There were trailers with him like smoking a cigar or whatever. Who's the main guy?
Winnie the Pooh is played by Craig David Dowsett, who has only been in low-budget horror movies.
I mean, he
Maybe you come from the universe where Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey actually had The Rock starring as Winnie the Pooh. That's a movie I would watch.
I swear there was a horror movie where The Rock was smoking a cigar in a trailer.
There might be.
I could have sworn it might have been an SNL parody. I don't know if that exists, but it might have been that.
You know, it's actually really funny on the topic of
Oh,
what?
I'm so sorry. So I was half right. SNL did do a skit with The Rock smoking a cigar as Bambi, getting revenge on the hunter for killing his mother.
You are 100% correct. I remember that.
So I just mixed two things.
So I guess like we can talk about Mandela effects for a second, although that might be a bigger conversation in a later episode, because I think that we probably both have a lot to say about them. But a lot of Mandela effects that I found that people like very staunchly believe in are things that I can easily identify as coming from like parodies. Like there's a lot of people who are like, oh my god, there's this one quote from The Wizard of Oz, but it's not in the movie anymore. And that's because it's from the Simpsons parody of The Wizard of Oz. And that has happened, me reading multiple threads about people's Mandela effects, where they're remembering a parody of the thing and then assuming it's from the original.
Interesting.
So that's actually quite funny that you just implanted an SNL skit into the real thing, because that happens all the time.
So not only did I Mandela affect myself, but then I explained how I did it, which is how most people do it. Bam. I was like a little mini lesson for the Mandela effect all in 5 minutes.
Remember, kids, the Mandela effect is because your brain is stupid, not because you're special and are from a different universe. Please touch grass.
What if I want to touch the sky? I just realized you could never touch the sky. You could touch clouds, though.
You can touch clouds.
Goodness.
I do kind of have a segue out of this conversation as well. I did not see the conversation going this way. This is just too perfect. So, and maybe this is in the same category as Mandela effect, but this is actually a segue to The Simpsons. So, yesterday, for the very first time in my life, I had a Shamrock Shake. Have you ever had a Shamrock Shake?
I have not.
So, Shamrock Shakes, I'm sure everyone is aware, are milkshakes from McDonald's specifically that are tinted green for St. Patrick's Day.
It was St. Patrick's Day yesterday. Hooray!
Yeah, yay!
There's no more snakes.
So there's this episode of The Simpsons I watched as a child from like the early 2000s in which Officer Wiggum is talking about how he wants a Shamrock Shake. And then Lou, the other cop, is like, hey, don't you know that like the Shamrock Shake is literally just a vanilla milkshake. They don't add anything to it. And Wiggum said like, no, it tastes like mint. And Lou says, no, it doesn't taste like mint. They just dye it green. The mint is all in your mind, Chief. And then they like argue about that. So I just kind of assumed forever that was true. That it's literally just a vanilla milkshake dyed green.
But did it taste like mint to you?
It is mint flavored. It's not just that it tasted like mint. It's literally just mint flavored. And as far as I know, it always has been.
I don't know. You know, it could just be in your mind.
like The Simpsons lied to me. They
just added some food green dye.
They lied to me for years. I Googled it. I'm like, maybe it's a recent invention that it actually tastes like mint as opposed to just being green. But no, it has always been mint flavored. I don't know what The Simpsons was talking about.
I mean, yeah, they were just doing a sketch bit. And you got bamboozled.
A sketch bit that... It bamboozled me. It tricked me. They gaslighted me. For 20 years.
Well, you know. That's what happens. I mean, is that on them, though, or is that on you for not taking matters into your own hands, making an informed decision about actually doing your own study, getting your own Shamrock Shake, and coming to your own conclusions?
I just thought that I was safely aware of what a shamrock shake was, but I was lied to.
Well,
That's simply the fact of the matter.
that's what happens when you blindly trust people. They lie to
When you
you.
blindly trust The Simpsons.
Family Guy would never, though.
Okay, and with that, we're going to cut to our musical break, and we're going to come back and we're going to do a mailbag. Everyone excited?
We have a mailbag?
No.
Hello there, and thank you, Le Grand Chase. Now, we've had a lot of fun on this episode so far, but now we get into the serious, deep realms of the world. In my lifetime, I'd like to think I'm a semi-knowledgeable person. I'm not necessarily smart, but I know smart people, and knowledge comes from other people, and I accumulate that within myself. The internet was invented, I believe, in the year of 92. Ever since then, the world has been different. The world has been different in such a way, and yet I've never lived without the internet. But its presence was always minor until more recent times in which it's played a more major and major role into the world. Now it's unavoidable, inescapable. It's always with you, even in your pocket. That's probably how you're listening to this right now, unless you've downloaded it for offline use. Because you're on a plane, aren't you, Karen? The internet is a wonder of things, but it sometimes make you feel a fool, as it did with me. If it were not for that clip of SNL Bambi, I would not have thought Dwayne The Rock Johnson played this Winnie Pooh murder man. Because I don't have cable, I don't watch SNL. So naturally, when I foolishly just downloaded TikTok years ago, and I came across thousands of videos about men being obsessed with the Roman Empire, I was confused because I've never thought about the Roman Empire outside of history class.
That blows my mind. Like, so this meme, it's probably about like a year old at this point, where it was like going around on like Twitters, and I'm going to say more like feminine focused blogs, where people are like, my husband or my boyfriend is obsessed with the Roman Empire. And so the trend, the meme, the joke became women asking their boyfriends, like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And men would answer like, maybe like twice a day. And this apparently like freaked out all the women. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, do you not? How do you not think about the Roman Empire multiple times a day? Like, what?
Do you actually
How?
think about the Roman
Yeah.
Empire?
Do you think about Hitler multiple times a day? Of course you do. It just comes up.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, I'm being 100% serious. Like, there are so many. Our society is based on so many different. You know, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and there's
but-
so many different aspects of our culture that trace back to different civilizations, whether it's the Greeks or the Romans, or the biblical era Jerusalem, or the downfall of World War II or the Victorian era. Like, there are so many things in our everyday lives that trace themselves back to those important societies and moments in history that, like, yeah, the history of the Roman Empire is something that consistently comes up, like, in just your daily life. Maybe
Okay.
we have slightly different definitions. Like, I'm not saying, like, every time I see a Roman numeral, that counts as the Roman Empire. But, like, yeah,
right.
like, when we first talked about this a few months ago, I brought up the example of, like, how frequently people use the phrase, the crossing of the Rubicon, to mean, like, things have gone too far this time, now it's like, this is the end. Someone finally stepped over the line, and, things are about to go down. The powder keg exploded.
I believe I pointed out then, but I've never heard that ever.
That blows my mind.
Like, not in any of the stories I've read, not from talking to any people. I think most people would say this is the last straw, or the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm-hmm.
instead of crossing the Rubicon. But and I don't like history is important and we should learn from it and like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think one of the distinctions that maybe might help this is like I'm low key imagining like you're on the toilet and you're like, so the Romans had aqueducts. So when they pooped, XYZ. And I feel like that's not how the Roman Empire comes in. Like you're not just sitting there being like, okay, so they renamed Ares to Mars because they needed to include Greek religions into their Roman beliefs, but they couldn't just wholeheartedly include it. But they realized from conquering other places that if you just incorporate the conquered regions' beliefs and cultures into the systems, they would have more devout new followers of the Roman Empire. And I just don't.
Correct. That is in fact not how it comes up. You are
Fabulous.
correct.
So what's the deal?
It's more just like I'd say cultural references. Like again, I think it might be more common for you or for people who don't have this, people who are not in the Roman Empire meme area that like they think of it the same as World War II, like calling someone a Nazi or referring to something as a blitzkrieg, or comparing something to the storming of Normandy, or just like the authoritarian state of like Hitler. Like oh that was my people nowadays I think we're more likely to make like oh that was my Vietnam jokes,
Sure.
something that was very stressful, jokingly causing PTSD, like that was my
Yes, that
Vietnam.
was
But it's similar, that was my Normandy, that was my D-Day,
sure.
etc. Like those kind of references to this cultural event are very common, and I just think that Roman Empire ones are equally as common as World War II ones, at least like in my
Well,
life.
so I think one of the things that happens is like the like, oh, this was my Vietnam. Like, what I thought of after you finished that sentence was, well, this was my canon event from Spider-Verse. And I think there's just so much culture and media things that people just substitute phrases that normally would have been historical phrases, but there's just now a modern lens that we can use instead. Because I don't really think I've heard be like, oh, this was my Vietnam, this was my D-Day. I think I've heard it like once or twice, but I've seen like online like thousands of memes of being like, oh, this was his canon event. Um, so
That movie only came out a few months ago. Like they didn't say canon event in the first Spider-Man movie. That was only from
yes,
the
correct.
second one, which is only a few months old. Like when I'm thinking Vietnam, like I'm imagining that meme of like the dog with like a 1,000-yard stare, and he's in black and white, and they Photoshop a helmet on him, and in the background is a bunch of helicopters.
Yeah. I know that one.
Like I've seen that. I actually I do love the term canon event. I used that recently, or not recently, a couple months ago. Like in my 9 hour long video on the history of Five Nights at Freddy's, I mentioned how MatPat's first live stream about Five Nights at Freddy's was a canon event.
Lols.
So like that has entered into my daily vernacular now. But I think that and I do love the use of it. But I think that people still being like, oh, that was my Vietnam is still something that will persist.
Sure.
I do think because I just have this very specific example. Um, personally, this being me, there's a lot of things within media that do reference both, again, we'll say Nazi Germany as well as the Roman Empire. And one of those things that consistently references those two is Star Wars. Like, you cannot talk about the Star Wars prequels and not relate it to the fall of the Roman Empire. Like, it's just part of the story. And so, as someone who thinks and talks about Star Wars a lot, it's just part of it. You just end up talking about Rome a lot. You talk about the Nazis a lot. It's just a thing. But I found this perfect example of this apparent gender divide. I think that this conversation has shown that like we're both men. One of us thinks about the ancient Rome a lot, and the other one doesn't. But the meme is that women don't and men do.
Right.
So I want to tell this very specific story where me and one of our friends were watching the newest Hunger Games movie, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is a prequel to the previous Hunger Games movies. It's the main character in this is the bad guy in the future movies, the old president man played by Donald Sutherland. This is now him as a young man,
Okay.
and so it shows the less technologically advanced era of 70 years before the Hunger Games, and it includes the idea that this capital society of the Hunger Games. I don't want to go fully into the story and the world building and lore of the Hunger Games, but it's rebuilding itself after the war. It's been about 10 years after the war where it was bombed and they got control over the districts, and like they're now living it up in high society, but there's a lot of actual problems and stuff slipping through the cracks, right? Like everyone's pretending that everything's great and everyone's rich, but there's a lot of poor people and starving people, and people remember the terrors of the war. They're also this obviously bad, authoritarian government that's kidnapping children to kill them. And so the school uniform that all of the teenagers in the movie wear is red, and both the men and women both have these, I'm going to call them skirts, these red skirts that go to like about to their knees. And so our friend that I was watching the movie with, a girl, made a comment about like how she didn't like that the male characters were wearing skirts because they look kind of silly. Like this is supposed to be an imposing fascistic force that are like the bad guys, and yet we see men walking around in knee-high skirts, and it's just kind of silly. And I
Uncultured.
was bewildered by this because I'm like, they're not. It's not a skirt. It's that's what the Roman military wore.
Yeah.
Like that, it's clearly trying to draw a parallel between the bad capital of the Hunger Games and the Roman Empire. Like it is so, and like again, it being authoritarian and military power and stuff like that. Like you're supposed to understand that when watching the movie, that all of this red and that these specific uniforms are mirroring the real life Roman Empire. And for the fact that there are people out there who didn't understand that amazes me.
Mm-hmm. Um, Obviously it's not the same, and they were going for that, but also kilts.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland, Ireland. I might be
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. Snakes. Yeah, that is kind of
A
wild.
Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, yes.
Oh my gosh, there's no more snakes now. As you were talking, one of the things I realized was I don't have a lot of guy friends. I have like 5 guy friends and the rest are women. I maybe that's part of the thing. But even with our own group though, I feel like it doesn't come up too much. Anyway, history is important, and maybe we don't do the best at teaching it properly, and the ramifications of that can be seen in various shapes and flavors.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
What's funny is similar to the meme about men thinking about the Roman ancient Rome is the like women asking their boyfriends the question of would you love me if I was a worm?
Dude, it's such a trap.
Like when that meme first started, I was like, I have definitely like heard this concept before, right? Like I've
Sure.
never had one of my girlfriends ask me the question, but the idea is like, oh, would you, if I fell in a coma, would you still love me or would you go get remarried? Oh, if I did this, like is our love eternal? Like it's stupid like high schooler logic.
Yeah.
And the idea is like, oh, if I was a worm, would you love me? And like the answer is supposed to be like, yes, I would love you no matter what. But like, no, because then you're not you. So
Um,
it's this silly teenage girl question that is
yeah.
just so obvious to everybody else that it's dumb, but it's such a thing that would get asked frequently enough for it to become a meme, and I love it as a concept.
It's also kind of wild to me. There is a question of like, are you a worm and are you just a straight up worm? Or are you a worm with your mind and you're like, help me, I am a worm? Because then it's like a very like, oh my gosh, you're like like I don't know. My love for my worm girlfriend would shift into like a much more like, I don't know, like guardian mentality of like, holy crap, you're a worm, we gotta take care you, like you could die so much easier now, and we'll still hang out, but you are a worm.
I'll sit down in front of you. I'll tell you about my day. I don't know if worms have
Maybe it's
ears,
good.
but maybe it's good. Um, obviously there's different manners in which people would assume the person became the worm, but I'm going to say that here. If I am transformed into a worm, and
Mm-hmm.
there's even a possibility that I still have human level consciousness, and thus I'm
Mm-hmm.
stuck in the worm body,
Yeah.
kill me. Please
I was
kill me.
gonna I was
Please,
gonna say
please,
I'd take a
please.
shovel.
Do not let me become a worm.
Yeah. Yeah. Glad we're on the same page about that. It'd be so much harder as a worm.
And it would just, I don't think worms have eyes or ears. Like, it's just, it's the awful. I
Yeah.
do love how this all came to a head by combining with the new meme about the Dune 2 popcorn bucket.
I don't know. No. I knew you were gonna go here.
With the post where a guy comes home and he's all sweaty and he's like, "Babe, I just saw Dune 2. I would absolutely love you if you were a worm."
I don't know. No.
So for context for everyone watching at home, I've said this a couple times. I work at a movie theater, so I have one of the Dune 2 popcorn buckets. And in case for some reason society loses all references of that meme in the future and you're watching this in the future, the Dune 2 popcorn bucket, it depicts one of the sandworms from Dune, and the sandworm has a lot of teeth, and they're little like plasticky rubbery bits. You're supposed to stick your hand through the tooth to get to the popcorn. It looks kind of like the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars. It's also pretty yonic in depiction. It's also pretty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It looks like a vagina. And so the joke is that people are obtaining these popcorn buckets and not using them to eat popcorn. They're using them for other activities. And so
We already brought up foot fetishes. Just go ham.
there is now the attitude that people are unironically attracted to the Dune 2 worms because of this popcorn bucket. And so yes, babe, I would love you if you were a worm.
I think A, attractive is a strong word. B, I just looked up Dune 2 popcorn bucket because I was going to be like, Devin, I don't know if you know what a vagina looks like. But then the first image results is Dune Part 2 AMC Sandworm popcorn bucket on eBay for $114.95, and right next to it in the listing is a picture. It's a bottle of lotion.
That's incredible. I think those things sold for like $25. It's amazing. I love that memes did that. But Eric, you've literally had your hand in one. I made you put your hand in the bucket.
I mean, yeah.
You didn't
know.
get the
No, I mean,
the implication.
No, I 100% got the implication. I wasn't attracted to it, and I wouldn't say it looked like a vagina. Ever like stop and get and you're in the middle of saying something and you're like, how did I get here?
Devin, I disagree. I do not believe that we should extend copyright law, and I do not believe that that popcorn bucket looks like a vagina. I think that that's how we can summarize this entire episode.
We need mail or something.
We desperately need some fan mail. We still don't have an email. But I'm pretty sure we're gonna end up just being Slapendipity, like at gmail.com. You know what? I shouldn't say that if we don't have it. Let me do it right now. Eric, I think a lot of this episode was me asking you questions, but I think that we've skipped over a big portion of the draw of our show here, which is what did Eric do this week? because I think that you can tell a lot of interesting stories about your current life as a hobo here in Happy Slappy Town.
Well, wouldn't you know, this week in my life, we talked about copyright in the group chat. Um, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like you know something I did that I forgot.
No, I'm
I ch-
genuinely just asking what you do with your day. When you wake up, you make any fun foods? How's the dogs?
oh, I mean, the I did not make any fun foods. I was looking for an electrician. Our back porch lights are not working, and like we replaced the bulbs for them. We are like, oh, the bulb's just broken. No, new bulbs didn't work. So clearly something with that is fucked. And um, I abide by like my father's teachings, where like I didn't go to trade school or anything, but like, hey, plumbing, carpentry, you could try solving a problem with that. Maybe you don't do well, maybe you have to call someone later, but you could at least try. But electricians work with electricity and lightning, and you could die. So just don't mess with that. So I took that lesson to heart. The I have slightly resolved to try a new approach for those who don't know, and I don't know why you would. I'm trying to lose weight. And
Yes, let's go, Eric.
hey, you know that vacation from Savannah I told a bunch of stories about over the past
Yes.
two?
Be your best self, Eric.
Yeah. So, you kind of lose sight of what you're doing because, when you go to a new place, you're like, I want to try the local cuisine. I want to explore these XYZ things. I'm not gonna make it a goal to work out. Like one day I think I worked like or walked 27,000 steps, which is roughly 10 miles. Um but like I didn't plan that. And so coming back from that trip, just kind of makes it easy to fall off the bandwagon. And I was like, yesterday or Friday, something like that. I was like, I haven't been hitting the gym as hard, and I'm not making it a point to get my steps. Now, I really need to change. I really should just do the anime workout: 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 10-kilometer run.
10 kilometers in a day?
Yeah, that's about 6 miles.
Wow.
Um, that all that being said, that's the goal. I don't think I could do 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and a 6K run in one day. I will have to build up to that point. Um, I actually watched a YouTube short a month or so ago about doing a test with this of like if we get a person completely out of shape, a person totally in shape and hits the gym every day, and the middle ground person between those two extremes, and we just have them do 100 sit-ups every day, what will that look like? And naturally, the beginner had the rougher time in the start of it, but he eventually got more used to it than like the professional guy, which maybe that's just an opinion thing. But the point I want to bring up is that like it took them like 90 minutes to finish it.
To finish 100
Um,
sit ups?
yeah,
Wow.
because they like took you catch a breather and stuff and like stuff like that, and I that was the most out of shape person that I guess they knew. So how much of a accurate scale is that? No idea. Um, But I thought maybe that could be fun. And then if I got in shape from that, that would just be hilarious if anime not only it solves my physical issues, not issues, but
Challenges.
challenges. I actually, part of the reason as well, I helped a friend move a dresser into their apartment. And traditionally, dressers are like designed vertically. This one was designed more horizontally. And it got to that point, as you may know, because it literally happens every time anyone moves anything that's roughly human sized, where like
Oh lordy.
it's like halfway into the doorway, but like uh you had to like there's you and another person lifting the thing and you get into the doorway, but then like you have to angle it weird so the other person comes to your side and now there's no one on the other side, so you can't like lift on both sides now because you had to adjust the angling. So that happened with us, and like some now two people were on the same side, someone needed to go on the other side. So I just moved and I was like, I got this. It's not, it's not that, it's designed horizontally. It's not that tall. Um, it still was like chest height for me though. And as I was squeezing in between the doorway and the dresser, normally in my life, when I move things, I just, and this situation arises, I suck in my gut because in the most part of my life, my ribs and chest would always stick out more than my gut. So as long as I just suck in my stomach a bit, you just scrape on through, no issues. So I tried doing that this time, and my gut got caught between the dresser and the doorway, and I was like low key stuck for a
No.
second. And thankfully, it's not ribs or anything. So just kind of like as if you had slapped jello. I just kept moving myself enough, and my gut just kind of like into position, and I made it to the other side, and it was fine. And we set up the dresser, and it was all good. But then you know,
Then it made you think, what if you were
I
what
should
if you
do
were
100
trapped?
sit-ups.
Yeah. I used
What
to
if I was trapped as a worm in a
if I was a
doo-doo
worm, could I
popcorn
whoop, whoop, whoop,
bucket?
whoop, whoop my way between a dresser? Question mark. I used to work for a furniture staging company, and so me and my brothers would have to move furniture, the same furniture, in and out of houses that were being sold. So like when people came in to do their walkthroughs and their open houses, it would look nice and cozy and comfy with this expensive furniture everywhere. And so over time, we had our favorite
Mhm.
chairs and couches. They were the easy ones, and then there was the least favorite ones, the problem children. And over time, we would like convince the lady who owned the company, like, "Hey, this couch sucks. Please buy this other couch so we can actually get it through doorways." So I have a lot of experience moving furniture. Although you
Mhm.
did just remind me, um, this would have been years and years ago. So me and my girlfriend at the time were shopping around for a desk for her because it was right around the time COVID was starting, and so she was going to be taking classes online. And we go to the local secondhand shop
Okay.
and find this amazing desk, super cheap, wonderful, amazing. Buy it. Go out to my car. Doesn't fit in my car. Have to call my little brother to come over with his SUV, his bigger car, and then get his help lifting it in there. Then we trade cars. So he drives my car home. I take the SUV to my girlfriend's house. And we get there. She was like renting this place with a couple other, college girls at the time. And we get there, and so we're like, okay, this desk is really big and unwieldy, and it sucks, and we're gonna have to get it through the door, and then like get it down the hallway and whatever. So like we're both well aware that like we might be dinging up some walls. There might be some challenges in moving this again phenomenal desk that I'm so glad we were able to get. So we get inside, and we're gonna like prop open the front door so that we can bring the desk in easier. And so we get inside, and her landlord is there.
Mm.
So now the
Hard
challenge
mode
of we're
unlocked.
going to move this desk inside and maybe ding up some walls is we cannot make a single mistake because the landlord is watching us. And if we bang up a wall, he's going to know who it was, when it was, and
Yeah.
why it was.
Oof.
So we do all this, and it sucks. And we get it perfectly in place. We get it right to the door to her room. And you know what happened, Derek?
Gut?
It didn't fit through the doorway.
Oh.
So we had to
Rip.
pause. We had to leave the desk in the hallway. I had to unscrew the door, take it off its hinges, move the door. The landlord's still in the kitchen, talking to the other roommates. Take the door, throw it on the other side of the room. Then we moved the desk again to bring it back inside. Finally got it inside the room, put the door back on the hinges. And I remember I turned to her and I was like, when you move out of here, we might have to like chainsaw this desk. Like, I'm sorry, but this is not getting out of this room.
It's an amazing desk. It was an amazing find. We love it. But also, it might need to die. Do you think she drafted Roman military plans on that desk?
No comment.
Okay. Okay. We might have to do some investigations then. The Roman Empire is trying to mount a comeback. And you're in on it. Silence?
Silence might mean yes. It also might mean no.
It might. I'm on to you, Wazowski. I'm on to you.
You know what's funny is I have a list of like topics in these segues that I bring up in these episodes, and we consistently go through more per episode than I think we're going to.
Yeah.
So I think in the spirit of me having something to say next week, I think I am done with my topics. Do you have anything else you would like to speak of today in this episode of Slapendipity, Mr. Eric?
Hey man, I brought up the Roman Empire, and that's
Yes,
just
you
been
did.
going. It's been making us nothing but cold hard cash. The hardest cash. There is one topic related to cold hard cash. It's not fully thought out though, like some edited out content. Netflix is kind of booty. And
True.
I don't like the state of our streaming. Streaming has become very close to the like cable packages BS that we just escaped from, and I'm tired of it. I'm aware monopolies are bad. I don't want monopolies, but also just have everything one place. This is stupid. Or there should be an app that just connects all of your streaming services together. So when you go to search for something, and it's like it just checks all of them. So then you don't have to go to Google and type in like Batman Beyond or whatever. Like if it's just on Netflix, it'll show up. And if it was actually on Hulu, but you're on Netflix, it'll just automatically take you to Hulu instead of exiting out, re-signing into Hulu, finding Batman there. Like just make it easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Beautiful cover girl. I think there's this website called like Where to Watch that I end up
Yes.
defaulting to. Like my mother wants to watch one of the movies that was recently nominated at the Oscars. And instead of just being like, oh, maybe it's on Netflix, it's like, okay, the only thing you can do is just Google, where is this streaming? And then
Yeah.
hope that you pay for that one. Like I'm not currently paying for HBO Max or whatever it's called now. So all these new shows that are like appearing on it, I'm like, well, I guess I don't get to watch those, which is like fine, right? Like that's the point of paying for these subscription services.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, I would love if when I'm making my financial decision, there's an easy way to pick like which of the services are going to have the shows I actually want to watch. Like they should advertise, right? Like Disney's like, okay, we got Star Wars and Marvel and Disney. And then, HBO Max is like, we got Game of Thrones and the DC universe. And then I have no idea. I don't know what's on Netflix. I don't know what's on Hulu. I don't know what's on
Yeah.
Paramount. Like,
Hmm.
I wish they were like, okay, what shows do you want to watch? Okay, if you want to watch those, you have to buy these.
Yeah.
I could be like, okay, that makes sense. Maybe I'll just do a month and I'll binge watch through Star Trek Picard.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
instead, I have to, like, I don't know, default to just the stuff I'm already paying for, which is, it feels bad as a user because I feel like I'm wasting money on these streaming services where the content isn't exactly what I want to be watching anyway. But I also feel like I can't spend more money to justify buying another one. So it just makes me overall, like, melancholy. I'm like, no matter what I do, I will not enjoy the amount of money I'm spending for the product I'm receiving.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, if you were in like on the high seas in international water or something, then it wouldn't be a problem. But also, low key, I think the way to go, which Netflix hates, even though it used to not hate, is to be like, get your group of friends. One person has a Netflix account, another person has a Hulu account, another person has an HBO Max account, and you all just share them and you all co-pay the various bills. Or like, maybe they cancel each other out or however you want to organize it. But then it's like, hey, do you have a Crunchyroll login? Let me just bum that. Hey, do you have an HBO Max subscription? Let me just get that login. And I mean,
I
I
think
guess
that
it's a
is
little
ideally the way to
dangerous, but
go.
yeah. And that was only point one on Netflix. Point two on Netflix. I don't know if you know, but I like anime.
No.
I like anime
Say
so
it louder, say it
much.
prouder.
I will watch it. One of my favorites is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure
I
because
have heard of it.
it's just kind of crazy in a good way. David Productions was the studio that adapted the anime from the manga of it. And it was on Crunchyroll for the longest time. They did like parts 1 through 5 on Crunchyroll. And for whatever reason, I'm assuming Netflix just paid more money. But for part 6, it
So
went
by parts you mean like seasons?
um
Like like adaptations of different like books?
yeah, it's a little jank. So like for the most part, each part is a different season. It follows a different main character. So like part one and
Okay.
two are different main characters, and it's very like I don't know, like 6 or 12 episodes for each part. But because an anime that's so short, they just combined part one and two into season one. I'm pretty sure. I want to
Okay.
say, and like part three is really long, so it has 2 seasons in it. So it's a little loosey goosey. So each part, like part one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, follows a different main character in like a different story context. For part six, it went on to Netflix for whatever reason, and Netflix just handled it super poorly. On Crunchyroll, your anime comes out on a weekly basis, right? And until it's over. So if you got 12 episodes, you're going to be waiting 12 weeks to get the full story, and then after that, you can just go and watch all 12 at once if you want to binge watch it. For Netflix with JoJo Part 6, they said we're just dividing the show in half, and we're just going to drop all of the first half on, I don't know, this random Tuesday, and then like
Oh.
half a year later, here's the second half that we dropped on a random Tuesday. And it hurt me personally because part 6 is one of my favorite parts, but it was so weird with its release that I never even finished watching it because I was just like, when, why, what, what, is it out? Is it not out? Is it, what am I,
Yeah.
what am I, What do you mean it's been out? You know, doing a weekly schedule of release is the norm in anime. And I think that's actually a like useful way to release TV shows because it generates conversation and popularity and whatever. Like Game of Thrones would release once a week and it would be the water cooler conversation everywhere for that week. I can't believe Arya just did the thing at the wedding and blah. And when part 6, like in when they released the first half and the second half, no one talked about it. JoJo's in from 20, I don't know, 18 to 2022, 23 was one of the animes of discussion on a weekly basis online because oh my gosh they did this, oh my gosh they adapted the 8-page Muda Muda, I can't believe
Oh
it.
my gosh, it was me,
It was
Dio.
and right, so everyone kept talking about it, and I saw no conversations about part 6. It just dropped in the night, no one noticed, and I think that's a shame. And Netflix messed up, and I hate it when they do that because my baby show. And but also just as a platform, you should be consistent with how you release your shows. There is a popular anime also that it was adapted from a manga, Delicious in Dungeon, and it's being released on a weekly basis. And I'm like, well, but why?
Oh.
But why? Is it was it literally just Netflix strong arming a company, or did David Production maybe not care, or they wanted to experiment with how they release things? Because there is a tradition of just binge watching on Netflix, so I could see them being like, well, I guess we'll just try it your way. But then it didn't work, and now people are talking about Delicious in Dungeon, which they rightly should. It's very good. I'm reading the manga of it, and then I will go watch the anime on Netflix because they have a chokehold. And
Do you feel like you've said your bit?
yes,
So I agree. I hate the way that Netflix releases shows just like a big season at a time for basically the same reason you said, where it really feels like episodes don't get the time to shine when the whole season drops at once. It also makes it really difficult to talk about. Like when the new Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix show came out, I'd be on episode 3 and I'd be talking to someone who was on episode 5 and we'd be like, okay, well, I guess we can't really talk about what we've seen so far. And then also, since we're just binge watching it, you don't even really remember where episode 3 ended and episode 4 started. So, we really can't talk about it until we both finish it. And with bigger, more hyped releases, oh my god, the new Stranger Things, it's you feel like you have to binge watch it entirely before going into work the next day. Otherwise, someone's going to spoil it. Or even just opening Twitter. It's a very, I think, not healthy way of doing things. Recently a show came, I think there's a good example. A show came out on Disney Plus about it's an adaptation of the Percy Jackson books.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about it.
And me and one of our friends were watching it, and we were watching it week to week, like the first 3 episodes. And the show is just absolutely not made to be watched week to week. It's an adaptation of a book. It's one story. So it really should be binged all together like a really long movie because it's one story, and the places where the episodes ended were very arbitrary. And I never felt satisfied watching a single episode because it's not one cohesive episode. It's just 1/8 of a movie. So we decided to wait until it was over to then binge watch the entire thing, which is fine. And it's good that that was our choice and that we were able to make that decision. But it's just 99% of the time, in my opinion, the exact wrong thing to do to release an entire season at once on Netflix. I have never thought that that was the correct way of handling a show. Because like you said, instead of us being able to sit down and be like, wow, episode 3 was great, and then episode 4 wasn't that good, but we can talk about this guy who was standing in the background who was all shadowy. Who is him? Who is he? The last big show that really came out that did something like that was the Ahsoka Star Wars show on Disney Plus, where because some episodes had less to talk about, people were able to focus in on minor details, and then those minor details became the thing that was talked about for an entire week. And I really think that increased engagement of the show, because you were sort of watching it in conversation with everybody else who was watching it and talking about it.
Yeah.
So I guess you could put me down in the category of it is literally never a good idea to drop an entire season at once, and I hate it that they do that. I hate Netflix.
Amen. Imagine, if you will, the last season of Game of Thrones was dropped all at once. We might not have noticed the Starbucks cup.
A similar thing happened in The Mandalorian. There's a shot where you could see a background extra who was just wearing jeans.
Lols.
Like his leg was in the shot.
Billion-dollar company. Mistakes happen, though. That guy's fine. Yeah. I don't, yeah. Weekly releases. Bring them back for everything.
Speaking of weekly releases, you know what show has a weekly release, Eric?
This one?
This one!
Woo!
Slapendipity, Hobos of Happy Slappy Town. Thank you all for watching this episode. If you want to send in mailbag questions, comments, or concerns, you can send them to slapendipity@gmail.com. Keep in mind, Slapendipity is written without any double letters. Slap has one P, N-E-N has one N, Pity has one T, one Y, all the letters are single. SLAPENDIPITY, slapendipity@gmail.com. Eric, do you have any wise words to send us out on?
So they're single? So, like...
We are both single, indeed.
Oh, I meant for the letters.
They're all single worms from Rome.
Yeah. Put on that Roman black... I flubbed it so hard. Put on that Roman gladiator battle skirt for me, Mrs. Worm.
I kind of take back what I said earlier. If I'm a worm and I do have human level consciousness, I actually don't want you to kill me. I think you could just set me up in front of a television, but for the love of God, do not make it Netflix.
Put on Hulu. They've got, like, anime and Futurama. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.